Okay, folks, let's go ahead and start up Illustrator. Now, Illustrator is a lot like Photoshop, so I'm going to really go quickly through the introduction and the overview of the layout of Illustrator because it's fairly similar to Photoshop. Of course, when you first start up Illustrator, you get this splash page, and folks can create new projects from here, open existing projects. Personally, as I said with Photoshop, I like to just be straight into the program. So just like Photoshop, you folks on your computers, for you Mac users, you come up to Illustrator here, preferences. For you PC guys, it's going to be edit preferences down here somewhere. And give it a second here to uh, let me choose general for now. What you want to do is unchecked show the home screen with no documents when no documents are open. You want to make sure that is unchecked. And show tooltips, you can turn that off if you want. But the next time you open up Illustrator, you'll jump straight into this right here. See, this is the type of startup that I want to see from Illustrator. If you folks are comfortable with what we just saw, this welcome screen, you want to leave that on, that's fine. Okay, so folks, this is Illustrator. Now, of course, we are using Adobe Illustrator 2019. Now, there has been a bunch of changes from 2018 version to 2019. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to revert back to the 2018 style or layout. And a lot of my PDFs or the class lessons that you folks can download from the class website deals with um, 2018 version or 2017 version. Now, all the information you get in these PDFs can still apply to the 2019 version. It's just that the layout might be a little bit different. Okay? So, for my tutorials, I'm going to switch to the old version layout. And the way you can switch to the old version is come up to over here where it says Essentials and go Essentials Classic from the drop down menu. So this is the old layout, last year's layout. Okay, folks? And that's what I'll be showing you folks today. So just like in Photoshop, you got the menu bar at the top. Now for you PC guys, this part is actually on the same level that you can close out the software with. You got your toolbar area, and then you have your panels area. Now here in Illustrator, they decided to stick a lot of the panels in the side tabs here. Okay, so you got your colors here. You got your layers panel here instead of here. And of course, remember, anytime you folks want to, you guys can always tear off a panel by grabbing the title here. Tear it off. Close up the panel with the double arrows here. And if you grab anywhere over here, you can pretty much, I'm not sure if you folks can see it in the video, but there's a blue line down here. So if you release it, then it pops the panel here. And you can add as much panels as you like. So if I wanted to take the color panel off here and add it up here, I could. You can resize panels by coming to the edge, hovering over the edge and watching for the double-sided arrow and move panels that way. Stick the color guide over here too. How you folks decide to lay out your panels is totally up to you. Just know that you folks have the sidebar just like in Photoshop and the panels area. And just like in Photoshop, if you come up to Windows, you have a whole bunch of panels here that you folks can activate at any time, and it'll pop out as a single window, and then you can either put it here in this column or you can put it here in the panels area. So these are the various tools that we'll be using. Now, for certain tools, you do have nested tools. Remember what I said, the little white arrow in the bottom right hand corner? If there is a little white arrow there, you click on it, or you long press. So hold down your left mouse button and you get a little pop-out menu of whatever is nested underneath the main tool. Okay, folks? You can shrink down the tool panel if you want by clicking the double arrows at the top. I like it like this, a little bit more compact. You can add more tools by clicking here on the ellipse, the three dots, and you can add tools from here into your tool panel area. Okay? Of course, you have your workspace here, and that's basically it. The same thing like Photoshop. You folks can create your own workspace by clicking on Window at the top, coming to Workspace, and New Workspace. So if you want to create a custom workspace, you can type whatever name you want, click OK, and once you do that, I believe it will become one of the options here. So you can create a new workspace by clicking here. Okay. So once again, folks, if you folks probably will be on the default Essentials tab like this. Okay. For my lessons, I will be using the Essentials Classic layout. It's just an updated version of Essentials. Essentials, which is the default when you first open Illustrator. It's just an upgraded version of Essentials Classic. Okay, so regardless of which one you use is fine. I'm going to be teaching using the Essentials Classic layout. And of course you have the workspace here. Now you folks might be asking, what is Illustrator? Illustrator is different than Photoshop in that Photoshop manipulates pixels. You folks know about pixels, as I mentioned before, because you folks see your LCD television, your big screen television, sometimes they can become pixelated. That's what Photoshop does. It manipulates and edits pixels. With Illustrator here, I'm going to just skip through the first one here. If you folks remember this from the first introduction video I did for Photoshop, as you can see, with Photoshop, which is represented here by the bitmap, you're dealing with pixels. Same item here, which is a picture of a soda bottle, ice cream soda bottle. With Photoshop, you're dealing with pixels to create this picture. With Illustrator, you're using vectors. What vectors are basically mathematical lines that you draw out using the pen tool. The difference between Photoshop and Illustrator is that Photoshop, if you transform or scale the image larger, a lot of the time you're going to get blurry or pixelated pictures. With illustrations in Illustrator using vectors, you can scale the image as large or as small as you want it and it'll stay nice and sharp. The edges of the image will be nice and sharp. Not so with Photoshop. You're going to get pixelation. Okay. Same thing here with the VW logo. Raster art. Raster art is Photoshop. You get pixelation around the edges when you magnify or scale up 400%. Vector art with Illustrator, scaled up 400%, still have nice clean lines. So that's the difference between Illustrator and Photoshop. Photoshop, you're dealing with pixels. Illustrator, you're dealing with vectors or mathematically drawn lines. I just went over the Illustrator interface with you folks. You folks can read over this for yourselves. But basically, you got the menu bar at the top. For you PC guys, as I said, it'll probably be right here on this level. You have a tool options bar with some of the tools, not all of them. You got the toolbar, of course, here off to your left. The general workspace area in the middle. And your palette box or your palette panels. And also the little column here on the side. So that's your general overall layout for Illustrator. Pretty much the same thing as Photoshop. Okay? And just like Photoshop, remember what as I said before, if you have the little white arrow down in the lower right hand corner of the tool, if you hold down your left mouse button as you click on the tool, you get a little pop-out menu and it shows all the tools nested under the currently selected tool. And that's only for tools that have the little white arrow in the bottom right hand corner. Okay, folks? So keep that in mind. Okay, creating and opening files. Creating and opening files is just like Photoshop. You're going to go File, New, and set your parameters. Setting your parameters, let's go through that right now. So File, New. Okay, so you folks will probably get this the first time you open up Illustrator. No parameters here. So what you want to do is probably come to Print. You have some presets here. And then also, just like your Photoshop, you can put in your own numbers here. Now what we are going to be working in will be inches. So the default usually is 8.5 by 11. If you click on this icon here, you can change the orientation from portrait mode to landscape, basically reversing the direction. So you're gonna go like a picture instead of a portrait, right? And once you get all of that, you just click create. So just remember, let me see here. Eight by 10. That's what your project should be. 8 by 10. So let's do that now. Let's change this to 10 and this to 8. And I'm gonna make it so that it's like a portrait. Actually, no, I'm gonna leave it in landscape. Whatever you folks decide, okay? Whether your illustration is gonna be a portrait or landscape. And of course you get the tool tips over here that pops up. If you folks, once again, if you folks don't want the tool tips, come up to Illustrator on the Mac, Preferences, General. For you PC guys, you guys are going to go out to Edit. Preferences is somewhere down here. Once you get this window up, you can turn off Show Tooltips. Click OK. and then you would have to restart Photoshop for that to take effect. I'm sorry, restart Illustrator for that to take effect. So this is how you get a new file up and running. File, new. Now that we've already opened up a file from the print tab, now in our recent tab we have that as a recent preset. So you can go ahead and the dimensions is already correct, 10 by 8 or 8 by 10, whichever. You can choose the orientation. Make sure it says inches here. Click create. Okay. Now when you go to save file, remember use save as. That's a lot more easier. But before I jump into save, this is called an artboard. This is your starting point in Illustrator. Okay, folks? You can have multiple artboards if you want, but the default is one artboard. So I just wanted to point that out before we jump into save. So this is, think of this as like your canvas that you're going to draw on. So to save out your work file, you're going to come up here, File, Save As, and just like in Photoshop, you're going to name your project, preferably your name. You folks know how that goes. Choose where you want to save it, and then choose the format. By default, it's the .ai. AI stands for Adobe Illustrator. And that's the work file that you folks are going to send in when you folks are ready to submit your project. If you click on a drop down arrow, you can choose different types. Among them is PDF. So you folks will submit 2 items to me when you turn in your project: an Adobe Illustrator file and an Adobe PDF. Okay? So that's how you want to save out your projects. And of course, all of that is listed here in the class notes. I'll go over opening files in the next video. Saving files. Remember, and I'll go over the tools of Illustrator in the next file. But remember that you folks will want to save often while you're working, just in case Illustrator crashes. Now, I haven't had Illustrator crash on me like Photoshop has. Illustrator is a little bit easier to work with, but you never know. So you may want to get into the habit of saving maybe every 20 minutes to half an hour, just to be on the safe side. All right? So that covers pretty much it for the introduction to Illustrator in this video. In the next video, as I said before, I will start covering the tools of Illustrator. So that's it for now.